Good morning, Happy New Year to one and all, and welcome to the chapter and its reading Training, Literal and Spiritual. Just as in the literal training requires the exercise of the body and exercise of the mind, the training of the spirit is based on the exercise of the spirit. Let's start reading. Training of the spirit. The spiritual training of the boys was a much more difficult matter than their physical and mental training. I relied little on the religious books for the training of the spirit. Of course, I believed that every student should be acquainted with the elements of his own religion and have a general knowledge of his own scriptures. And therefore I provided for such knowledge as best as I could. But that to my mind was part of the intellectual training. Long before I undertook the education of the youngsters of the Tolstoy farm, I realized that the training of the spirit was a thing by itself. To develop the spirit is to build character and to enable one to work towards a knowledge of God and self-realization. And I held that this was an essential part of the training of the young, and that all training without the culture of the spirit was of no use. The training of the spirit is to acquaint the children and the students with their religion, to acquaint us, to make them understand, to make them familiar, to bring knowledge of their scriptures, that is, their holy books. Secondly, it is understanding God, understanding self, and developing one's personality and character. Gandhi realized that without the culture and training of the spirit, any training was of no use and might even be harmful. I am familiar with the superstition that self-realization is possible only in the fourth stage of life, that is, sannyasa, renunciation. But it is a matter of common knowledge that those who defer preparation for this invaluable experience until the last stage of life attain not self-realization but old age amounting to second and pitiable childhood, living as a burden on this earth. I have a full recollection that I held these views even while I was teaching, that is in 1911 and 12, though I might not then have expressed them in identical language. It is a common belief that, rather, Gandhi calls it a superstition. What is a superstition? A false belief, a blind faith. People feel that training of the spirit and spiritual understanding should come when you have completed your all the stages of life and you are ready for sannyasa, that is renunciation, to give up life, to go and fall and realize the importance of spirit. But according to Gandhi, understanding the spirit and spiritual knowledge at the age when you have grown old is not correct. Understanding the self during the old age becomes pitiable childhood. It's worth pity, and if you have not understood the self, then you become a living burden on this earth. And Gandhi, in his 1911 and 12 training, has even realized this, that self understanding Understanding and knowledge of the self should be given to human beings early in life and not later in uh, old age. So, reading of the scriptures should be encouraged not in old age but at young age itself. How then was the spiritual training to be given? I made the children memorize and recite hymns and read to them books on moral training, but that was far from satisfying me. As I became as I came into closer contact with my students, I saw that it was not through books that one could impart training of the spirit, just as physical training was to be imparted through physical exercise and intellectual through intellectual exercise. Even so, the training of the spirit was possible only through the exercise of the spirit. So, here it is an aesthetic sense. It is the sense of Gandhi that the spiritual or the holistic training of the student has to be done, training of the body, training of the mind, and workout of the spirit. And it can't be done just by mantras or chants or reading. It has to be the practical experience of the spirit. The growth and the development of the spirit happens with practice and training of the exercise of the spirit. And the exercise of the spirit entirely depended on the life and character of the teacher. Yes, the teacher's life, character of the teacher is very important to impart spiritual training. The teacher had always to be mindful of his P's and Q's, whether he was in the midst of his boys or not. The teacher has to live a very sacred life and a very disciplined life, even if he is with his students or not with his students, Gandhi feels. It is possible for a teacher situated miles away to affect the spirit of the pupils by his way of living. It would be ideal for me if I were a liar to teach boys to tell the truth. A cowardly teacher would never succeed in making his boys valiant, and a stranger to self restraint could never teach his pupils the value of self restraint. I saw, therefore, that I must be an eternal object, lesson to the boys and girls living with me. They thus became my teachers, and I learned I must be good and live straight, if only for their sakes. I may say that the increasing discipline and restraint I imposed on myself at Tolstoy Farm was mostly due to these words of mine. So, this is very important. The relation between the guru, the student, and the guru, it's two ways. It is for the student that the guru has to live straight. The student become the teacher of the guru. And yes, if a teacher is a liar, he cannot teach his students the importance of truth. If the teacher is a coward, he cannot teach his students the importance of bravery. And if the teacher does not have self control, he cannot teach his students the importance of control in life. So, spiritual training, according to Gandhi, is more important and also more so, more difficult to give than literal training. Thank you.